Hi, I'm Flava D and I'm here with Music Radar going through my brand new track called Reesey Thing. And yeah, this is a single that's coming out on my album, which is out in September. Really excited for it. And yeah, we're going to be breaking it down. Okay, so this tune, Reesey Thing, it's kind of like a rolly club tune that's coming out on my album. So I originally started this, but I'll play a quick little snippet of it. So when I started this one, I originally started with the piano's riff. So this is something I made in the M1, the OG Core plugin, but then rendered that into audio. Some reverb, Valhalla delay. This is a weird plugin called Endless Smile, but it's like a little live hack to just add some really nice reverb and like 3D stuff to it. Kind of what I've been doing lately. Yeah, and then after that, it was just kind of building like a little intro around it. The rises, and then I took this house loop from a pack that kind of gives it like a nice little groove to it. So this is actually a house thing that I just sped up, which would sound like this originally. Yeah, some like funky house loop, and then turn it into this. And then I got this like random vocal as well that kind of sits in the background of the tune. I think it was originally something from Splice even, and then Lost in the Moment, I think it says, and then there's like another little house sample that I sort of put into like 174 BPM and just mess with that. And then after that, it was just building the foundation of the drums. So this is what the drums sound like. So consisting of quite a few different break layers, I've got this one I use quite a lot in some of my tunes. It was originally a jungle break that I made sound a bit more 4/4. Kind of like a think break, and then another one here sits in the background. Got some extra tops. Some shakers, a lot of reverb. I always put like my Valhalla on there as well. I make them 3D so they're like really sitting in the back. And then obviously you've got your kick snare. Kicks, more breaks. They're all just like sitting in different pockets of like the left and right basically. So it all fits together. And side chained with the kick as well. Number three, think break, really EQ'd quite high as well. Do the snare. So yeah, all together. And then yeah, so basically that's how the tune got going once I had everything. And then it was just thinking of a bass line. I wanted to keep the tune quite simple really, but like rolling, sort of with not a lot of elements in it. So then that's when I just got a simple sub bass. It's a lot more simpler than a lot of tunes I make, but then I added the Reese bass on top to add that kind of crispiness. So this is just Serum again with a lot of saturation. It's a really cool plugin I'm into at the moment as well, the Camel Strip. So these together. Not a lot going on, but then you do have like little elements in the next section that sound like this. kind of like a detuned square bass, this one. So again, lots of saturation. I love this stock plugin that comes with Ableton. And then in between, it's kind of like a bit of call and response. So I've got some mids that kind of sit in the pockets as well. It sound like this. And then I put a stutter effect on this with Shaper Box. So without it, it would sound like this. But when you put that on, it's got that like LFO-y effect. So yeah, that's them two together. And then as the tune progresses, we've got this little plucky melody. It's quite like a signature thing I like to do. So this is a serum, yeah, pretty much just an analog sine that kind of filters in as it approaches with here. Got a bit of delay. Pretty much everything else is in here. We've got like chorus, bit of flanger, hyperdimension. And then with that, you've got another pad that comes in as well. It sounds like this. It rises towards the approach, so this one. So the next section as well, it comes into kind of like a bridge. That's where like the melodies kind of all come together to create like the second drop and a bit of anticipation. So we can play that. You've got a lot of like different risers going on as well that really helps like that tune get that sort of anticipation and then punch as well. So with that, I've got a few layers of like white noise. I just play this little section of build up. What makes it sound better is like there's a reverb and delay layer on each as well. So individually, there's just a bunch of different white noise essentially. What's in this one? Yeah, this one's just two different reverbs and Endless Smile again, which is usually used as like a little quick tool for build-ups, but I find it's a really nice reverb as well. So the more you put it up, it just gets more intense. So another thing I did as well, I put on the master chain an Endless Smile, and as it approaches the build up, it kind of has like a swishy effect, which it's almost like you're like manually taking the bass up the whole track before it comes back in. So I did a manual automation here, which is just, you can kind of see it doing it. Yeah, such a sick little tool. Yeah, that's that. And then in the second drop, so there's a bit more going on rather than just like a copy and paste of the first section. You've got some of those plucky melodies that come back in from before, which is this section here. But I changed them slightly, so it's kind of got a bit of filter automation, which is, I think, in here, the cutoff. Oh, here we go. So I'll show you that. So you can see here all the different ways it goes up. I think I did that as a manual thing and recorded it in. So yeah, if I was to do it again, it would just basically be recording this. So yeah, that was that, and then a bunch of like different reverbs, delays, a bit of Woe's Belanger, which is one of my favourite little things to put on like plucky type melodies. And then these come in again as well. Yeah, that's pretty much the main foundation of the tune, really. It is quite stripped back, but just quite quirky and fun. It's not a tune I want to like overthink too much. And then, yeah, at the end, towards the outro, I do have a certain bass changing key, which I like to do as well. So a nice little wompy bass in there I love as well, this little one. So rather than just having like a boring sine wave, you do have a bit of variation in the low ends there. And both of these are also side chained to the kick and snare. Shout out Metric, this is something I learned from his videos. It's just the LFO tool, and you basically sculpt the kick and the snare so that it's a bit more of a precise way of doing like a side chaining with your bass and your kick, and you just kind of like can really tweak it very sort of like meticulously. Yeah, so it just lets things breathe a bit more and having a bit more control over all the elements. I tend to like always play my melodies in, usually just if I'm making tunes like on my travels, which is 90% of the time, I will just pencil in my melodies, but quite often I don't really like sort of freestyle till I hear something like, I tend to hear the melodies in my head, and then it's a case of trying to really quickly get them in to Ableton or voice noting them. But for this one, the pianos, it was just a case of penciling them in. Let me open one of my pads quickly. So actually the Plucky would be better. Yeah, so it was just like penciling it in until I found something that kind of sounded like what I thought I heard in my head. So I was like, yeah, just kind of like messing around and positioning things, but until I kind of got that main riff. So that's how I usually work. I tend to try and get things sounding as good as I can early on, because there's been times like in the past when it has come to that stage of mixing and mastering a tune, and it's just like you have to like backtrack a lot if you're doing a lot of the mixing at the end, and you want to try and get things sounding as good as you can in the early process, just to save time later on, and because your ears can almost get like a bit like tone deaf, and if you start drastically changing things, you might identify it as sounding like wrong. And yeah, so I try and get into the habit of, at least one thing I always do now is like side chaining to my kick and my snare, whatever elements are playing. And yeah, you just already got that good groove going from the get-go. So I think it helps to find really good quality samples from the get-go. Like a lot of these breaks do sound very clean, or I've treated them sort of beforehand. Let me just play. So like even this individual layer here, it's like already got something to make it pop out more, and it's already been pre-shaped to the kick so that it's highlighting certain things, so that another break that's singing with it can dip when that one's coming through. And because if I had absolutely nothing on these, it would just sound really muddy and horrible, and it would probably affect how much I'm getting into the tune, so that I can like get onto the next element of whatever that may be. So it's just, and it's always something like a lot of the boys tell me to do, like a good habit to get in the early process. This sort of arrangement, yeah, I would say it's pretty typical to have sort of like a 16 bars of intro of some sort, and then the drop, and then sort of introducing sort of interesting elements along the way. And then going into like another section here where you've kind of got that more melodic bridge, then approaching the second drop. That's kind of always how I've worked when I make my music, and I think it's just always stuck. And typically that would usually sort of be for like an instrumental tune as well with no vocals. Yeah, that's pretty standard. And then second drop, approach, outro, and then yeah. I do have lately actually been getting into convolution reverb, which is I think a melder. Yeah, this is sick. So I've been getting into a habit of putting these on my drums bus, and I think some of these got exported before, but it's a really nice tool to sort of open your drums a bit more and add like this sort of raspy reverb layer without making it sound muddy. So if I play the drums, so on one of the sends, so I've got this reverb full wet, and then you just kind of introduce it in slightly. Oh, that's the wrong one. This is the one we want. So it really opens them up, makes it more 3D without it sounding too stereo, and you can really sort of change how much hell you want. Got all different types ones in here that can flick through until you hit something like and then just sort of just driving that in more until you kind of have a bit more stereo. And then one thing as well I always got taught to do is just make sure you shave off the low, so you're not like, you don't want like those low ends, those low frequencies coming through in the mix. You just want to like enhance sort of the mids and the highs of the drums. So that's something that's really cool to do. Even certain plucks actually. So if I was to put that on these little pluck melodies? Oh, here. So if I was to put them on these, it's really subtle, but it can just sort of make them sound a bit wider. So it's quite a cool tool. And also on my drums as well, something I would do is probably like Decapitator, which is a really good one. I didn't do it on this because I think it's only something I've started doing, but if I was to do it, so what I would do now is put it in here, put it on full. So yeah, drive it up quite high and then just sort of dial it in. You can get quite a nice saturation feel. So that would be this one, I think. So you can hear here, it is quite distorting it quite a lot. But if you're driving it in slightly, it's almost like a brick wall compression. But it does definitely do something. Yeah, so kind of they're like my two main things that I would do now with my drums bus.